Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 3 in the morning, your mind racing with worries that seem impossible to silence? Perhaps you've knelt beside your bed, whispering desperate prayers into the darkness, wondering if anyone or anything is truly listening. Or maybe you've tried meditation only to find your thoughts scattering like leaves in a storm, leaving you feeling more frustrated than peaceful. If these experiences resonate with you, you're not alone in this deeply human struggle to connect with something greater than ourselves. In our modern world, we're constantly bombarded with noise, distractions, and the relentless pace of daily life that leaves little room for the sacred. We scroll through our phones seeking connection, yet feel more isolated than ever. We pursue material success, thinking it will fill the void within us, only to discover that the emptiness persists. Deep down, many of us carry a profound longing for meaning, for purpose, for that elusive sense of peace that seems just beyond our grasp. We yearn for answers to questions that have haunted humanity since the beginning of time. Why are we here? What is our purpose? How can we find healing for our wounded hearts and troubled minds? This universal search for spiritual truth and inner peace is perhaps what makes the story of Edgar Cayce so compelling and relevant to our lives today. Known as the Sleeping Prophet, Cayce was an ordinary man who discovered an extraordinary gift that would touch the lives of thousands and continue to inspire seekers decades after his passing. Born in rural Kentucky in 1877, Cayce appeared to be just another person struggling with life's challenges until he began entering trance-like states that allowed him to access profound wisdom about healing, spirituality, and the mysteries of existence. What makes Cayce's teachings particularly powerful is not just their mystical nature but their deeply practical approach to spiritual growth. He understood that we don't need to be saints or spiritual masters to access the divine connection we all crave. Through his remarkable gift, he revealed that the tools for transformation, healing, and spiritual awakening are already within each of us, waiting to be discovered and cultivated through the ancient practices of prayer and meditation. But here's where Cayce's approach becomes truly revolutionary for our time. He didn't present prayer and meditation as esoteric practices reserved for monks in monasteries or spiritual elites on mountaintops. Instead, he showed how these timeless disciplines could be seamlessly woven into the fabric of ordinary life, offering practical guidance for busy parents, overwhelmed workers, and anyone struggling to find moments of peace in the chaos of modern existence. His teachings suggest that the very challenges we face daily, the relationships that test us, the physical ailments that concern us, and the emotional turmoil that sometimes overwhelms us, can all become gateways to deeper spiritual understanding when approached with the right tools and perspective. Think about your own relationship with prayer and meditation for a moment. When you pray, do you sometimes feel like you're simply talking to yourself, casting words into an empty void? Do you wonder if your prayers make any real difference, or if you're doing it right? When you attempt to meditate, does your mind rebel against the stillness, filling the silence with grocery lists, work anxieties, or replays of old conversations? These struggles are not signs of spiritual failure. They're simply part of the human experience, and Cayce's teachings offer gentle, compassionate guidance for working with these very real challenges. What's particularly fascinating about the Sleeping Prophet's insights is how they bridge the gap between the mystical and the practical, between ancient wisdom and contemporary understanding. His teachings on prayer weren't about reciting perfect words or following rigid formulas, but about developing a genuine, heartfelt connection with the divine that transforms not just our spiritual lives, but our entire approach to living. His guidance on meditation wasn't about achieving some impossible state of emptiness, but about learning to listen, to be present, and to open ourselves to the healing and wisdom that naturally flow when we create space for them in our lives. Perhaps most importantly, Cayce understood that true spiritual practice isn't about escaping from the world, but about bringing more love, compassion, and wisdom into our daily interactions and decisions. His teachings reveal how regular prayer and meditation can help us become more patient parents, more understanding friends, more effective healers, and more authentic versions of ourselves. They show us how these practices can help us navigate life's inevitable challenges with greater grace, find meaning in our struggles, and discover our unique purpose in the grand tapestry of existence. As we embark on this exploration of Cayce's teachings together, I want you to know that this isn't just another spiritual discussion filled with lofty concepts that have little bearing on real life. This is about discovering practical tools that can help you sleep better at night, find peace in moments of crisis, experience genuine healing in areas of your life that need it most, and develop a sense of connection that no amount of social media scrolling or material acquisition can provide. The wisdom we'll explore comes from a man who understood suffering, who faced his own doubts and challenges, and who discovered that the answers we seek aren't hidden in some distant realm, but are accessible to anyone willing to approach the divine with sincerity, openness, and a genuine desire to grow. Whether you're someone who has been on a spiritual path for years, or someone who is just beginning to question the deeper meaning of existence, whether you come from a specific religious tradition or consider yourself spiritual but not religious, there's something in Cayce's teachings that speaks to the universal human need for connection, connection, healing, and purpose. I'm curious about your own experiences with prayer and meditation. Have you found practices that truly resonate with your heart, or are you still searching for approaches that feel authentic and meaningful? What draws you to explore these ancient practices in our modern world, and what obstacles have you encountered along the way? Your journey and insights are valuable, and they contribute to the collective understanding we're building together in this community of seekers. This is why I invite you to join our growing family of spiritual explorers by subscribing to our channel. When you become part of this community, you're not just accessing more content about spiritual growth and healing. You're connecting with others who share your desire for deeper meaning and authentic transformation. Together, we're creating a space where questions are welcomed, experiences are honored, and the journey toward greater peace and understanding is supported with compassion and wisdom. Your subscription helps us continue bringing these important teachings to light and ensures that you'll be among the first to receive new insights that can enrich your spiritual journey. Most importantly, it helps us build a community where no one has to walk the path of spiritual discovery alone. There's something profoundly lonely about sitting in silence with your own thoughts, isn't there? I remember the first time I truly attempted to pray, not the mechanical recitations from childhood, but a genuine reaching out into the vastness of existence, hoping someone or something would reach back. My hands were trembling, not from cold, but from the raw vulnerability of opening my heart to the unknown. Perhaps you felt this too. That moment when you realize you're standing at the edge of something immense, something that could either embrace you or leave you feeling more isolated than before. Edgar Cayce understood this tender place of human longing better than most. Through his extraordinary gift, he glimpsed the delicate bridge that exists between our physical world of pain and struggle and the spiritual realm of infinite love and healing. What he discovered wasn't some complex theological system or mystical doctrine reserved for the enlightened few. Instead, he found that prayer and meditation are simply the most natural languages of the soul, ways of speaking and listening that we've somehow forgotten in the noise of modern life. When Cayce spoke about prayer, he wasn't talking about the desperate bargaining we often do with the universe when life becomes unbearable. You know those moments when you find yourself promising to be better, to change, to do anything if only this one terrible thing would pass. We've all been there, haven't we? Kneeling in hospital corridors, pleading in empty houses, whispering into pillows soaked with tears. But Cayce saw beyond our desperation to something more beautiful and sustainable. He taught that true prayer begins not with our words, but with our willingness to remember that we are never truly alone, that there is a presence always available to us, waiting patiently for us to stop talking long enough to listen. He spoke of different ways to approach this sacred conversation. Sometimes our prayers need to be like rivers, carrying all our needs and worries and hopes downstream to a larger body of love that can contain them all. These are the prayers where we ask, where we petition, where we admit our human fragility and need. There's no shame in this, though our culture often tells us there should be. Cayce understood that acknowledging our limitations isn't weakness, but wisdom, the first step toward recognizing that we are part of something greater than ourselves. Then there are those prayers that flow outward, like light radiating from a candle. These are the moments when our hearts expand beyond our own circumstances to hold others in love, when we become channels for healing rather than just seekers of it. I wonder if you've experienced this shift, when your own pain suddenly becomes a doorway to understanding someone else's, when your prayers stop being just about getting through your own dark night and start being about helping others find their way toward dawn. But perhaps the most transformative prayers, according to Cayce, are those that ask for nothing except the privilege of communion, of simply being present with the divine. These contemplative moments strip away all our agendas and expectations, leaving us naked and vulnerable in the best possible way. It's in these spaces that we often discover that what we thought we needed wasn't what we needed at all, that what we've been searching for has been carrying us all along. The meditation practices Cayce recommended weren't about escaping our human experience, but about diving deeper into it, about finding the sacred thread that runs through even our most ordinary moments. He understood that our bodies aren't obstacles to spiritual connection, but gateways to it. When we learn to sit with our breath, to feel the miracle of air entering and leaving our lungs, to notice the steady rhythm of our hearts, we begin to recognize the divine presence that has been sustaining us every moment of our lives. But here's what Cayce knew that many of us forget in our spiritual seeking. Consistency matters more than perfection. Those 5 minutes of authentic prayer or meditation, repeated day after day, transform us more profoundly than hours of sporadic, half-hearted practice. It's like tending a garden, isn't it? A little water every day creates more life than flooding the ground once a month. Your soul responds to faithful attention the way flowers respond to steady sunlight. The silence that Cayce emphasized isn't the absence of noise, but the presence of peace. It's that space between your thoughts where wisdom lives, where healing happens, where you remember who you really are beneath all the stories you tell yourself about who you should be. In this silence, you discover that you don't have to earn love or prove your worthiness. You are already complete, already held, already home. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of Cayce's teachings is how they transform our understanding of service. When we truly connect with the source of all love through prayer and meditation, we can't help but become conduits of that love in the world. Our healed hearts naturally reach out to heal others. Our peace becomes a gift we offer simply by being ourselves. This isn't something we force or manufacture. It flows as naturally as breathing when we remember our true nature. As you sit with these words, I wonder what stirrings you feel in your own heart. What would change in your life if you truly believed that prayer and meditation aren't obligations or spiritual exercises to perfect, but invitations to come home to yourself? What would happen if you approached your inner life with the same gentle curiosity you bring to a beloved friend? This journey we're on together, this exploration of the deeper currents of existence, is one that's best traveled in community. If these reflections have touched something in you, I invite you to stay connected with our growing family of seekers by subscribing to our channel, not because you need more content to consume, but because the path of spiritual awakening is illuminated when we walk it together, sharing our questions and discoveries along the way. Sometimes I wonder if Edgar Cayce could have imagined how desperately we would need his words in this moment, in this peculiar time when we carry computers in our pockets yet feel more disconnected than ever before. There's something both heartbreaking and beautiful about how his gentle voice from nearly a century ago still reaches across time to touch the very wounds we're nursing today. Perhaps that's what true wisdom does. It transcends its era because it speaks to the eternal aspects of the human experience, those parts of us that remain unchanged despite all our technological evolution. I think about how Cayce would view our modern world, where meditation apps compete for space on our phones with social media notifications, where we seek instant spiritual gratification in the same way we expect instant everything else. Would he be surprised to see his teachings about prayer and meditation woven into corporate wellness programs, or to find his insights about the mind-body connection validated by brain scans and scientific studies that he could never have imagined? Maybe he would simply smile with that knowing look of someone who understood that truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how many layers of complexity we pile on top of it. The remarkable thing about walking through our current landscape of spiritual seeking is witnessing how Cayce's core message keeps emerging in different forms, like a river that finds its way around every obstacle, in yoga studios where people discover their breath for the first time, in therapy offices where healing touch meets emotional release, in quantum physics laboratories where scientists glimpse the interconnectedness that mystics have always known. Everywhere, his understanding that we are not merely physical beings having temporary spiritual experiences, but spiritual beings learning to navigate physical existence, continues to unfold. But here's what moves me most about Cayce's enduring relevance. He never promised us that the path would be easy, only that it would be worth it. In our age of quick fixes and instant solutions, his teachings remind us that true transformation happens in the quiet moments, in the daily choice to show up for our inner lives even when, especially when, we don't feel like it. He understood that spiritual practice isn't about achieving some permanent state of bliss, but about developing the capacity to meet whatever life brings us with greater presence, compassion, and wisdom. You know those days when everything feels too much, when the weight of existence presses down on your chest and you wonder how people manage to find hope in darker times than these? I've learned that Cayce's greatest gift wasn't his psychic abilities or his mystical insights, but his fundamental understanding that each of us carries within us an unbreakable connection to love itself. This isn't some abstract spiritual concept, but a lived reality that we can access through the simple acts of prayer and meditation, through the willingness to be still long enough to remember who we really are beneath all our stories of struggle. What strikes me as I witness the continuing evolution of consciousness studies and holistic healing is how science keeps catching up to what Cayce intuitively knew, that our thoughts affect our bodies, that intention carries power, that healing happens in mysterious ways when we align ourselves with forces larger than our individual will. Researchers are now documenting what he taught decades ago, that meditation literally changes our brain structure, that prayer can influence healing outcomes, that the barrier between mind and body is far more permeable than we once believed. Yet for all the scientific validation, there's something about Cayce's approach that remains beautifully simple and human. He didn't need laboratory equipment to know that a mother's prayer could heal her child, or that sitting in silence could open doorways to wisdom our rational minds can't access. He trusted the intelligence of love, the reliability of divine presence, the transformative power of sincere spiritual practice in ways that our skeptical age both craves and resists. Perhaps this is why his teachings continue to find new expressions in every generation. In a world that often feels fragmented and chaotic, his vision of unity and interconnection offers not escape but engagement, not spiritual bypassing but deeper embodiment. His practices don't ask us to become different people, but to become more fully ourselves, to discover the light that was always there beneath the layers of conditioning and fear. The teenagers who discover mindfulness through apps on their phones, the scientists studying consciousness in university laboratories, the healers integrating energy work with traditional medicine, the grandmothers teaching their grandchildren to pray, all of them are carrying forward the legacy of a man who understood that every sincere attempt to connect with the divine matters, that every moment of authentic spiritual practice ripples out in ways we can't measure but can certainly feel. I find myself wondering what would change in our world if more of us truly embraced Casey's central teaching, that we are not separate from each other or from the source of all life, that our individual healing contributes to collective healing, that our personal practice is also an act of service to the whole. What would happen if we trusted, as he did, that love is not just an emotion but the fundamental force that holds everything together? As we continue exploring these timeless teachings together, I'm reminded that we're not just studying spiritual concepts, but participating in an ongoing conversation that spans generations. Your questions, your struggles, your moments of breakthrough, they all matter. They're part of the continuing evolution of human consciousness that Casey glimpsed in his extraordinary visions. If these reflections have stirred something in you, I invite you to stay connected with our community of fellow seekers by subscribing to our channel, because the wisdom we're uncovering together is too precious to explore alone.